Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We hope that you will subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Podchaser, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Becca Eisenberg. She is a children's author and also the driving force behind a really, really useful website you want to check out called Language During Mealtime. Before we invite Becca in, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Design to Shine by Joy Reeser. This is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Open any page of Design to Shine for a rhyme with art for your heart. Topics will lead you and your loved ones into fun, laughter, and joy, and onto the dance floor. You'll receive ideas to pay attention in new ways, reminders about kindness, and so much more in this alphabetical treasure. This is a book. This is a guide. This is a gentle teacher all at once. It's a book for you. It's a book for your child. It's a book for your inner child. And it's all about loving who we are and reminding us that we are all designed to shine in the world. Designed to Shine, a Reading with Your Kids certified great read by Joy Reeser. Join us on the line right now from Westchester County in New York City, right in the epicenter of the current COVID-19 crisis. Please welcome to the show the driving force behind a really, really resourceful, a really great blog called Language During Mealtime. Please welcome to the show, Becca Eisenberg. Becca, how are you?
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be on.
I'm really excited to have you on, too. I'm really happy that you and your family are safe. As I said, you're right in the epicenter of what's going on right now, where, you know, the hot spot where currently it's the most cases of people testing positive for COVID-19. Just how are you, and I know you told me that you and your family are being safe. How are you and your family coping with this?
Well, I mean, it pretty much started, I would say, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And as far as coping with it, what I'm doing is I'm trying to be as cautious as possible, but what I'm doing is also taking it day by day and also just continuing to live my life the best that I can every day. So one of the things that, I've been doing a lot of, online parent training. So as a speech pathologist, I've been trying to narrow the scope, meaning that what can I do? What am I in control of today that I could do to help other people that are struggling? And so, I've been trying to just narrow the focus, and I think that has been really helpful for me, just kind of saying, okay, today is Thursday. Okay, I always remind myself of the day, and say, okay, well, today is Thursday, and I'm going to look at my schedule. I'm going to set up my kids' online learning and kind of go over the schedule with them and what they need to do. And then I'm going to look at what I need to do, and I'm going to try to, reach out to some families and see how I can be helpful to them. So I think giving back has been like a huge source of comfort for me because, as a speech pathologist for 20 years, I love giving so much. It just makes me feel really good to help other people. So, reaching out to those families and just asking them, what could I do to help support you? And so I think that's what just as an educator, as a provider, I think kind of starting that question out like that, really helps set the tone. And, that's what I've been doing. I've been kind of just what I was saying, and narrow the focus. I have also been doing a lot of creating my own materials for specific families, like personalized books about the kids and emailing it to them and then they could print it out at home. As far as keeping my family safe, we've had a lot of conversations about what is social distancing, being safe. My kids are older. So, older meaning they're 10 and 11. So I think it's different than when you have a much younger child and explaining it to them. But my kids, they've also had like a lot of good education at their schools as far as, what's going on with the COVID-19. So, we talk about the day. We talk about, what we need to do to stay safe. Washing hands is super important. But I also think, having a schedule. I know there's been lots of resources out there for schedules. And I think to me, it's, because I've looked out there as well and I've created lots of different schedules because I'm a scheduled person. I like to have schedules, especially when I'm doing therapy with my students, is that we always have a schedule for our session. And most people just want to feel like they know what they're doing for the day. So, I've gone through my, my process with schedules, what's worked, what's not worked. My kids have also created schedules, what they thought worked. I think what's been really helpful is just like my kids' own online learning schedule. So, and also for my kids as well, as far as like setting the limit on screens. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean screens online learning because we have to be on screens for online learning. I'm talking about like video games and things like that and TV. And so what has been most helpful for me this week, and I'm going to say this week because I'm trying to just kind of take it day by day, is saying that we're not going to be doing video games for this period of time. So we're not going to be doing it when we wake up in the morning, and we're not going to be doing it at the morning roll. That's when our learning takes place. We are going to do it, after lunch. And that's what's worked for my family, is just keeping the kids kind of focused on their online learning in the morning. And then in the afternoon, focusing on if they want to go on, play some video games or getting outside is very important to me. Taking walks. This is something that we could do. We could social distance. We could take walks. My kids take bike rides around the neighborhood, social distancing. You see somebody, you wave, but you just, keep going. And also for us, also taking drives has also been helpful. We'll just sort of drive to, I don't know, we'll just take a half an hour drive, like maybe driving nowhere, but, taking drives. And so, keeping along with that schedule, but then also making sure, because I know that the screen time is a big topic for a lot of parents out there, controlling the screen time. But I think what's been helpful for me is everyone needs their own time as well. So it kind of gets me into this self-care. So for other parents out there listening to this, you have to also take care of yourself. And I tell this to my kids every day. I need to take care of myself to take care of you. So if that means me going to go on the Peloton for a little bit, or me going to take a walk by myself around the block to kind of just, clear my head a little bit, I'm going to be there better for my family if I'm taking care of myself. So when I'm talking about being safe and healthy, it's not just physically, but it's also mentally. And I think that's something that we really need to stress, because everyone also needs their individual time. Even our kids my kids need their individual time. If they need some space, that's okay. They could go into their room and have some space a little bit. So, that's what's been working for me so far.
Well, there's so much there that is important and helpful. The idea, I saw a meme that was funny. It was on social media, and it's like, let me know when it's time for me to get out of my daytime pajamas and into my nighttime pajamas. And that was kind of cute and everything, but I think you're right. It's really important. Kids, especially special needs kids, but kids all love structure, and they love a schedule, even when they tell you that they hate it. They want to know that they're getting up in the morning and that they have a purpose and that they have something to focus on. And just sitting around in your jammies all day long and not taking a shower and just eating whatever the belly rumbles and moves you, that's not healthy, especially for kids. And it can really make the time that we're in whatever you want to call it, quarantine or lockdown, securing in place, it makes it more difficult. The other thing that you said that I think is wonderful, and it's something we talk about here on the show, is one of the things that you're doing to help yourself and help your sanity, help you get through this time, is to help others. And I think that that's a wonderful thing that we can teach our kids, is just realizing that when we're giving back and we're helping others, it helps us take the focus off of ourselves and helps us to stop, if we're in that, oh, woe is me, when will this ever end kind of mindset. It really helps us break out of that when we're thinking, okay, stop focusing on what's going on in my life. Let me focus on how I can help others.
Well, yeah, and I also think it gives perspective as well, because I think when you're, let's say when you're, whatever situation you want to call it, I mean, if it's, shelter in place or quarantine or even just, being home, right? It's hard to sometimes have perspective. I mean, I know a lot of us are on social media and we see that, but I think it's a different perspective when you're actually personally talking to a family and you're having honest conversations. And I think that it gives you perspective about other people's situation, also that you're not alone. Mm-hmm. So we're all in this together and we're all having good days and bad days. Nobody's doing, I don't think there's, you don't win an award for being the best mom today, right? You're just, right. Yep. I think, I'm just doing the best that I can. And I think everyone else is doing the best that they can. I think, teachers are doing a great job. They're doing the best that they can. They're taking a curriculum that's meant to be done in person, and they're doing their best to get it online. I also think, thanking people, thanking your teachers. I mean, I know I emailed, one of the teachers yesterday, just thanking them for, everything that they're doing. Thanking if you have to go to the supermarket to get something, thanking that worker who's the cashier, yep. Thanking them for being there today. When you go to the pharmacy and you have to pick up your medicine, if you have to, thanking that pharmacist. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for, basically getting risking yourself sure. to be mm-hmm. there for other people. And I think being grateful instead of, I know a lot of people going through lots of different feelings, and I know that, it's very easy to be maybe resentful or angry or upset. And of course, we know people who have COVID, who are, let's say sick, or they're at home, or they're in the hospital. And so that is really, really hard. That is really hard. I think, but for me, what's working is just sort of staying focused on what I'm grateful for, and what I could do to, help others. So I really think with reaching out to other people is, and I know that's one of the other things I kind of come to is that, the longer this goes, what is this going to do to us emotionally and socially? And, like we were talking before, one of the things that I have found really helpful is, listening to Governor Cuomo, being a New Yorker and listening to him. I find his press conferences to be, I think, really helpful for me. And one of the things that he was talking about yesterday was, self-care, but just also, he has, I don't remember specifically all the things that I was taking a walk and I was listening to it, and I find his advice to be very comforting for me, mm-hmm. For families, and talking about when are things going back to normal. Well, he's like, things are not going to go back to normal because there's going to be a new normal. Right. And how is this affecting us socially? So, one of the things that I do to kind of because we have to keep social connections up, right? We can't just close ourselves off to the world. So, what I found helpful is having phone conversations with people, not just text messaging, hearing somebody's voice, doing FaceTime, let's say with my dad has been helpful, doing FaceTime with my brother and my sister-in-law and my niece and nephew. I mean, that stuff is really something that we want to keep up. We want to keep up these social connections because if we don't, we feel really lonely. Yeah. And I think that leads to other problems. So we need to do what we can to be as connected as we can as possible. And if there are times that you don't want to be connected, that's okay too. I think there's also something being called overconnected. Sometimes when I get overconnected, yesterday I was a little overconnected. So we went for a drive. I left my phone at home because I didn't want my phone. I just wanted to just sit in the car and just close my eyes and relax a little bit. And that's what I needed. And when I came back, I felt better. Mm-hmm. So, and everyone needs to do things that makes themselves feel better, right? Mm-hmm. So so that's.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important to be safe, to follow the social distancing guidelines, and to keep ourselves safe, but also doing things that are keeping ourselves sane. We want to keep safe and also keep sane.
Exactly. And I've also found some really good opportunities online, virtually. I've done some book readings online, which has been really fun, and that's been wonderful. And then, continuing on my podcast, having conversations with other people, and I even did a class online for my daughter's class about writing children's books. So that's been really helpful. So one of the other things too is, staying connected to your kids' online learning. If there's something that you do career-wise or, work-wise that could help the students, even in your own community, reach out to teachers and ask them, can I be a guest? Can I come on and talk? Because, we're all trying to help each other. We're all a community and we're all here for each other. We have to. So I think that was for me, it was a really nice way to contribute. So, that's the other thing, is just looking locally.
Yep.
As well.
Yeah. So I want to make sure we touch on, I mentioned that you're the driving force behind Language During Mealtime. Tell us a little bit about that website, what we're going to be able to find there. Tell us about your books and your podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So I started my website many, many years ago, 2012, I believe, which is, a long time ago. But it actually started out as Gravity Bread. It started out as more of like a food blog. And then, because I love children's books so much, it became more of like a book review with recipes. And it was sort of an evolution. It just sort of, built up over time. And then I would say last year I really needed to change the name, and I think that's why people sometimes you see remnants of the Gravity Bread because it's on my social media, is that I wanted to change it to Language During Mealtime. And the reason why Language During Mealtime is because it started out with sitting with my kids during mealtime, and, growing up and eating with my parents and my brother was like a really important time for us to sit down for dinner together and to have conversations and to be together. And I always found it to be just very grounding. Mm-hmm. So when I had kids, I wanted to make sure that I had that same routine with them. I think it's really important to sit and eat together.
Yes.
So I had a hard time with my kids when they were little, as far as like sitting and paying attention. And, I had a hard time kind of keeping their focus. So what I started to do was reading books during mealtime, and that became our routine. And it's been super helpful in my own life because this is a time where I could read a book and we could talk about the book, and my kids sit down better. I mean, they're older now, but we still read books during mealtime. Maybe we're not reading as many picture books, but maybe we're reading chapter books. Sometimes I'll even read like articles from a newspaper. So I'll pick sort of different types of reading material. It doesn't have to be a book. But that's how Language During Mealtime started, is that I was trying to encourage parents to sit down with their kids during mealtime instead of, having the screens, and just making that time to be like a language-enriched learning time. Mm. So, and having fun with it and being relaxed and feeling good about that time during the day. So it started out like that, and then what I've been doing for many years is, reviewing books and putting language tips in there for parents because, book reading is such a language-rich activity. And a lot of times when I'm doing with my own students, but also when I'm doing parent training, is talking about, pulling the language from the book and showing parents how to read aloud more effectively. And throughout this process, I also have written 4 children's books. So my first 2 children's books were with my co-author, Mindy Weinbrenner, and it's called The Monkey Balloon, and it's Hal the Monkey Balloon. And our website is themonkeyballoon.com. And we have it illustrated by Yuki Osada, who's a beautiful illustrator. And the three of us have been a team for about over 10 years now, 10 years together, creating books together. And so those are the first two books. And then I wrote a children's book called My Second Year in Kindergarten, and it's for families out there with children who are repeating kindergarten, who are repeating a grade, because there was really no books out there about repeating a grade. And so I think, and also I wanted a positive book. I wanted to show struggles, but I also wanted to show that it could be a really positive experience. It's not a book to encourage. It's not a book to encourage parents to repeat that. I don't think it's appropriate for everybody, definitely not. But for the families out there who decide to repeat kindergarten, that it's a resource for them and their child to explain to them about, the difference between their first year and the strides they're going to make in their second year. And so this is a real personal book for me because it was written from personal experience. And so that book has been really, really helpful. And my fourth book has been Bluebee Pals Techie Rangers, was written with the Bluebee Pals company, and it was a book for kids with communication needs. So for kids using communication devices for their communication, they're not able to use speech for communication, and incorporating her toys into the book. So that one just came out over the summer, and so that was another fun project. And I also have an ebook that I've written as well. And then the podcast started over the summer because I really wanted to feel, I know that you know this, Jed, but, I just wanted to connect more with authors and with educators, and I wanted to have more of like a conversation back and forth. And I also wanted to make my website just, a multi-sensory experience, meaning that it's not just something that I look at. It's also something that I listen to.
Yeah.
And so I always found, because, also as an instructor, because I also teach, is that we have all different learners out there. And we're not just talking about kids, we're talking about also adults, right? Like, I'm a visual learner. I really learn best when I'm seeing things. However, I also like to listen to things. I like to listen to audiobooks. So how are you getting the information, as an adult, like to other adults? Are we getting the information better reading, or are we getting the information better audio? So I wanted to give people that experience of listening to people on the podcast, learning, but also having the blog as well. And I do it because I really enjoy it, and it's really fun. And I've gotten a lot out of it. I've made some really nice connections, and it's been really fun. So that's why I keep doing it, because I really enjoy it.
Excellent. Well, I certainly enjoyed doing this podcast, and I love that whole importance of having conversations during dinner time. It's so important. It's so valuable and so fun. I understand that there are families out there where everybody's on their device, and I've seen it going out to restaurants and everybody's sitting there on their device, and it's like, no, we're together. It's time for us to break bread and to communicate with each other. And at the very least, just talk about what you saw on your screen before you sat down. But that time is so important.
It is, and I know it's hard for parents out there. Listen, but it's also about setting a routine as well. So even when I go to restaurants, I'll bring some books with me, or I'll bring something with me, because, and when we set the standard that this is the one time that we're not on our screens, that we're not the one time, but we're making, hopefully there's going to be other times throughout the day, but making this time sacred, and saying, you know what? And a book is a really nice way, because you're bringing material into that specific time. So, I may bring a book that somebody sent me, or maybe I'm printing out an article, Or maybe I'm even having to asking my kids, hey, could you go pick out a book that we could read during dinner time? And I know a lot of parents ask me too, well, I have kids of different ages. Well, part of this stuff, a lot of the stuff I have online that I have on my website is about how to read to different ages, different abilities, different, all different types of learners. And, that the thing is you're only going to be learning by doing. So one of the advices that I give to parents out there is when I'm reading to an older child, I'm going to ask different questions. I'm going to ask questions about prediction. I'm going to ask them questions about a character's traits and their qualities. I'm going to ask them to maybe recall the story and say, hey, could you tell me, could you just give me a quick synopsis of the story? And maybe for my younger kids, what I might be doing is just asking them more simple questions, or not even really asking tons of questions, maybe just filling in the blank and using just some of the strategies that I talk about on my website. One of the things that I really like the think aloud strategy, is that we're not always asking questions kids constantly, but I might be reading a book and I might say, you know what, I'm reading a chapter book and I might say, you know what, I wonder what is going to happen next. I think that whatever, this is going to happen. What do you think? And my kids are pretty good. They know now. They're like, stop with your teacher, your teacher strategies. But the thing is about being natural about it. And I say, come on, no, really. This is something I'm thinking about. What are you thinking about? So I think, when you're reading a story, just sort of taking it to that next level. Mm-hmm. So, and the other thing too, if you're asking a question or you're asking your kids and they don't know, that's another great opportunity to say, okay, well, let's talk about this, or even asking your kids, how would you end the story? Would you end it any different? Or there's just so many interesting things that you could do with books, or, well, who's your favorite character? And I like this character because.
Yeah.
My son and I are reading a really good book now. It's about becoming an astronaut because my son, it loves space and wants to be an astronaut. And so we're reading this book every night. We're reading a chapter every night. And there's some great conversations that come from that. So it could be any sort of different reading material, but we kind of have to take the risk as parents. We have to kind of, put yourself out there and be thoughtful and be natural about it. And it's going to become, I always find reading time it's not only a language enriching time for me, but it's also a way of bonding with my kids because, I'm sure you feel the same way, Jed, because you've also written books, is that, the characters have become almost like people that you know.
Yeah.
In books, that you feel so connected to certain books. So I don't know, I think it's just a great bonding experience.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we want to make sure everybody knows where they can go to find out more about your books, find out more about your podcast, and also just find out all the different things that Becca Eisenberg is up to. So where can we connect with you online?
So just go to my website. It's languageduringmealtime.com, and you could go to the contact me page, and my email is there. You could email me. You could also, I'm also on social media. I'm on Facebook, which is Language During Mealtime, and Twitter, which is @GravityBread. But it's also, if you search Language During Mealtime, it should come up. And Instagram as well, which should be @GravityBread, because that one I haven't, that one is still @GravityBread. So you could connect with me, in any of those ways. I'm also on Pinterest as well. So yeah, and he said there's lots of ways, and LinkedIn. So there's lots of ways to find me. But I guess the easiest is to email.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking with the driving force behind the great website, Language During Mealtime. Becca, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for sharing about you and your family's experience during this time, this really unique time in human history. Please stay safe, and we look forward to you coming back on the podcast soon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity today. It was so great. It's the highlight of my day speaking to you. So thank you.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. It's another great STEM Tuesday edition of the show. And our guest will be Kirsten Larson. She'll be talking to us about wood, wire, wings, Emma, Lillian, Todd, invents an airplane. That's the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. I want to thank the incredible team that helps me put together this amazing show. First, I want to thank our guest, Becca Eisenberg. Be sure to check out Language During Mealtime. I want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my awesome author, Ambassador Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of her support. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so much for helping us flatten the curve, keeping your kids safe, staying inside, washing your hands, socially distancing yourself, and all those other great things we're doing to help each other beat the COVID-19 virus. But most of all, thank you for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.